Hi, this is Stu from Yoga Anatomy, and I'm here with Melanie Cooper, and the author of Teaching Yoga, Adjusting Asana, and we're going to be talking to her about exactly that subject. And so what I'd like to ask you first of all is about adjusting. What are the purposes of adjusting, first of all?
Well, adjustments have different purposes depending on the student. So with beginners, it's giving small corrections, and sometimes people have very little body awareness when they first come to yoga, so sometimes it's just putting them in the right place, in roughly the right place. For beginners, often that's enough to be making the right shape and to be still breathing, and that's a good start for beginners. So it can really help just to use your hands with those people. And then the next sort of move on with adjustments is to connect people to their core strength. So for example, in Chaturanga you can put your hands on their feet and ask them to press back, and then they can
so they're working with you.
Connect to the core strength. And also to make corrections in alignment. Quite often if people are flaring their rib cage, you can put them back in the right place, so to connect them to the correct alignment. And then also, if somebody's a more experienced student, if they're breathing well, if they don't have any injuries, then you can maybe take them a little bit deeper into the pose. Sometimes people stay out of poses because they don't know they can go deeper, and sometimes with adjustments you give that awareness, and then next time they can go themselves. And sometimes the nervous system gets stuck in a place where it thinks that it's not safe for the body to stretch any further. So it can reset the nervous system really to allow someone to go deeper.
And quite often I've been in class and received the same adjustment daily over a period of several weeks. Is that something you're aiming to do as well, to sort of reinforce a certain pattern or behaviour?
Yes, definitely. So for example, if someone's stiff doing their twists, then I'll try and start with the twisting Trikonasana poses and give them a twist then, and then in the Marichasanas, and sort of help as their practice goes on to always try to be working to open up whatever their stiffness is.
And as a practitioner, sometimes we can sort of get addicted to adjustments, can't we? We can sort of think, where's my adjustment in this or that today? You know, there's a fear of that too. And what is the person that's actually receiving the adjustment, what should they be thinking about while they're getting it? Maybe that's what I'm trying to get at.
That's an interesting question, actually. I don't know if I've thought about that too much. I think a good adjustment should connect you to your foundation. It should put you in the correct alignment, and then maybe take you deeper into the pose. So to be aware of if the teacher is pressing down in a certain place, that they're reiterating your foundation for you. So that's to try and press down there yourself, and then the direction that your teacher's taking you in, that can help you know how to work into the pose yourself. Because yes, the ideal scenario is that we help people for a while, and then they
left to it.
They go to by
because sometimes you can be a bit passive while you're getting an adjustment, can't you? Almost let the teacher, like in Utthita Hatha, sometimes you let them take the whole weight of your leg away. And it's like, then you're not really working. It feels really nice.
I try and do as little as possible. So my intention when I'm adjusting someone in that pose isn't to hold someone's leg for them, but it's to allow them to work on straightening the supporting leg, getting the hips level and the shoulders in the right place, and for them to work on their alignment, not just to hang out with me doing all the work. Really.
And what are the common alignment things that people have wrong, generally speaking? Is there a thread that goes through? I mean, you've taught all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things to watch out for. I mean, quite often people collapsing, just to start with the foundation, people collapsing onto the arches of the feet, and that it can feel like it lets you go further into the pose. For example, maybe Warrior One. And that back foot is collapsing to allow that to happen, and that's putting pressure on the knee. So to start from the foundation that, if the feet aren't in the right place, then it's putting pressure on the knee and maybe on the ankle and the hips as well. What else? Quite often, if people again want to go deeper into a pose, they'll end up overarching their back, so that can put pressure on the spine, and over time cause wear and tear on the joints. So I think those are the two main ones, really. That it can feel like it's making you go deeper into the pose and making the pose easier, but actually you're just hanging out in an unhealthy position, really.
And what are your feelings about how active you should be in the posture? So for people like very flexible hamstrings, there's a tendency to just like flop and be there at the bottom. They're in it, but how can they work and how can they...
Yes, well, I think when people are very flexible, that really their job or the work for them is to connect to their core strength. So to really connect to their foundation, connect to their bandhas, draw everything in, and so maybe not go down as far as they possibly can go, but make sure they stay, pressing down through the sit bones, engaging the legs, the bandhas, and then connecting to their core. Because otherwise, especially in forward bends, if you're very flexible, you can just end up pulling on the ligaments of the sacroiliac joint, and just only bad things are happening. Really, so.
Rather than take an opportunity to maybe work on the strength as well as the flexibility. And being in class, I've received all sorts of adjustments from like, fantastic, you thought, God, that felt so easy, they got me into that really easily, to, oh my God, that was dreadful. So what are the key, as a person that's giving the adjustments, what should they be thinking about, the key principles for adjusting?
Yes, well, I suppose first of all you have to think about yourself, that you're in your foundation, that you're balanced, that you're connected to your own bandhas, that you're breathing yourself, so you're in a good position. And then the first part of any good adjustment reiterates the foundation of the student. So in sitting poses normally, the sit bones, or in standing poses quite often stabilizing the hips, and that gives them their foundation. And then to make contact, wait for the breath, move with the student's breath, and just, I guess, just knowing which way into the pose to go.
Where they're trying to take you.
Exactly.
Sometimes,
And working on twists and forward bends, working with the exhalation. On back bends, I tend to work with the inhalation. And then also feeling for resistance. So if you're feeling resistance, go very cautiously, basically.
And taking care that everybody is so different, I suppose. And now a resistance in one will be totally different to another.
I think you have to check it out with a new student. If you're feeling pressure, you can say, is this okay? Could I go deeper? Or do you want me to back off? You have to check. Because sometimes you feel resistance, but it actually feels good for that student for you to go gently with it. Sometimes it's like, no, you need to back off. So I think you have to ask.
Which way you're going. And is there certain postures that you just is not too clever to adjust?
Well, always when the knee is in lotus, you have to be very, very cautious. I mean, there are adjustments that you could do, but nothing that's going to put pressure on that knee that's in lotus. So I'd say that would be my main real, be very careful.
And what about wide-legged forward folds?
Oh yeah, that's true. With a wide-legged forward fold, I would only, for the sitting poses, only ground the hips. I wouldn't push them forward. And for the standing poses, I just press the hips in to give more stability, especially if someone's very flexible. That can really help to stabilize the hips as they go forwards. But yes, I'd never push somebody forwards in a forward bend.
And a little bit more about the adjuster themselves, protecting their own body. So they've got to have their own foundation. And what about for things like, I've heard of problems if you're doing a lot of work with taking people into drop backs on a regular basis. How can you protect yourself from injury?
Yeah, well, you've probably got one foot forwards and in a bit of a twisted position to drop someone back. So if you're always doing that in one position, then you're probably going to do something to yourself. So you have to make sure you alternate which leg goes forward. Also to make sure that you're not using your shoulders. That's one of the things you see with people new to adjusting. They're like this. And if you're using the strength in your arms, then you're going to tire yourself out. So you need to make sure the shoulders and arms stay relaxed and use your body weight and just ease in with your body weight rather than pushing.
And you mentioned earlier about tuning in with the student's breath. So some people will say, well, I can't hear their breath's too light. So what are the other ways that they can notice the inhale, exhale of the student?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can ask. You can say, breathe a bit deeper, breathe so I can hear you. But also you can see the rib cage moving, or if you put your hands there, you can feel it. So yeah, I'd say that's a real a key. If someone's not breathing deeply, then it's not safe to adjust them.
Yeah. So from the student's point of view, because sometimes as a student I've had a different breath to the adjuster, and you're thinking, do I change my breath to adjust to them because they're sticking with their breath, or do I stick with my breath and expect them to change? So what do you do?
Well, I feel that really the adjuster should tune into the student, because we're trying to stay with that. You're helping the students in their practice, and they should stay in their flow. So really, that's what should happen. But I don't know. Maybe that doesn't always happen.
Doesn't always happen. And what about the time in the posture? Do you stick with their 5 count? Say we were talking about Ashtanga now and the 5 count breath, or if somebody can really do with a little bit extra time in the posture, do you generally take them a bit longer, or do you?
Yeah, I think if it's something that someone's really working on, or if one side is stiffer than the other, then maybe giving it a little bit of extra time, and the 5 breaths is not sacrosanct really, I don't think. I mean, if it's just a sort of adjustment to help someone, then stay with the 5 breaths. But if you're working on something with someone, then take a bit more time.
Yeah. And what about the things to look out for to see if that person needs adjusting? Are there certain things that, when you're looking around the class, stand out as a sore thumb? Like, okay, that is an indication that person could really do with an adjustment in that particular posture, or?
Yes, well, I mean, the first priority is always safety. So if someone's doing something that's potentially going to hurt themselves, maybe straight away, but also over time. So like I was talking about the collapsed arches on the feet, or if someone's hyperextending their knees or their elbows, or if they're doing something that's going to cause them problems, then that would be my first priority to adjust that. And then I suppose it's a balance, and after a while you don't think about it consciously so much. It becomes a bit like your yoga practice itself. At first you're thinking, I'm rotating this here and I'm lengthening in this direction, and after a while that just starts to happen naturally, and you just find yourself going
gravitating
somewhere and doing something. And you get to know your students and what they need and what they want, and also just to give everybody something. So it's a bit of a juggling act, I think. But I think it just starts to happen by itself. I guess that's on a good day, that there's just a flow to it. And hopefully you're always magically there when people want you.
That need you. I mean, as thinking of now as a student in the class, sometimes, you feel that something is suddenly brought up maybe 3 months after you've been with the teacher, and you think, it runs through your mind, how come, have they only just seen that, or are they waiting because I've had other stuff going on and they think that this other stuff is more important, and now they bring it up, now I'm ready? Or is it just, what goes on sometimes in the mind of the teacher?
I mean, sometimes when someone first comes to practice, you don't want to bombard them with too much information. Stuff. So, for example, in Ashtanga, I'd always look at someone's chaturanga first.
Right.
And
is that because of the safety issues or the potential for injury? Or?
Yes, and I think it's something that quite often people are doing it in a way that's not helpful for their body, let's say.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes it's just a matter that people can't do it right, first of all, because they don't have enough strength, or they don't have enough awareness, so they've built up that, but then they've got into some kind of wonky habit.
Bad habit patterns.
With the shoulders. So I would always correct that first, and then maybe look at the foundation. If they're doing anything with their feet that doesn't look helpful, then correct that, and then leave that for a while to settle in, leave them to work with that for a while. And then once that's in place, then have another look and see. So I don't want to tell somebody everything at first, because otherwise they'd probably leave going, oh my goodness.
You undermine their confidence sometimes. Say, oh my God, I'm doing everything wrong.
Or what's up with her? She's really
picking on me or something like that.
So I kind of drop things in every now and then, and sometimes I guess we don't notice everything straight away. I mean, none of us is perfect, so maybe it's like, oh.
And on that line, I mean, sometimes I've been in a class, and let's say I'm practicing all of primary and a certain percentage of second or whatever. And it might be that you go through the whole of primary without an adjustment, and then when you get into second you start getting your adjustments. And the thing that always goes through my mind is, does that mean that my primary is okay, or does it mean that, you know, because in my own mind I'm thinking there must be so much stuff in there that could be adjusted, you know what I mean? How come somebody is not adjusting something, you know? So again, is it that when some people get to a certain level, it's okay, now we'll leave that bit alone and then we'll concentrate on this section, or how does it work?
Yeah, maybe there is an element of that, that if you don't need it,
yes,
then it's just kind of, it's nice to have it, but if you don't need it, then maybe you'd be left. And sometimes it is nice as well, I think, to just be able to go into your flow and go maybe a bit deeper mentally, that an adjustment can pull you out of that. So yeah, I think probably people will be prioritising what you need and when
to have it.
Yeah.
And going back to the people doing the adjusting, a lot of people have a confidence problem when they're starting out as teachers to know either how much to adjust or when to adjust. And so what are the guidelines for them? Because sometimes they have the sort of I call it stuck on the wall approach, you know, where they're like they're on the wall, and you think you're going to have to get off that wall in order to do something.
Yeah, well, I suppose start small. Start with something little. I mean, maybe things that like making sure people don't hunch their shoulders up, so you can just go down and encourage people to draw the shoulders back and down, and start with that, and then just get confident with that, and then next time maybe add something, maybe in downward dog, checking with people's foundation. You can just, you know, do a very simple thing with pressing the hands down. And start with very simple, small things, and gradually build it up. And as well, if you've got a friend or an old student, someone that you know and trust to practice on, practice. I mean, it's like anything, the more you practice, the better you feel about doing it. So, yeah, start small and build it up. That's my advice.
And there's lots of variations of adjustments, or everything is done in different ways depending on who's taught who and whatever. But are there like key concepts that you can think of that run through all these different types of basically doing the same thing?
I think that like I think I mentioned already. First of all, where is the foundation, and how can you reiterate the foundation, and then if there's any alignment points that you need to correct, like if someone's overarching the back or hyperextending their elbows or something like that, and then just which way in the pose do you want to go, and going with them. So it's not an imposition. It's not like I want to take you as deep as you can possibly go. It's like I'll hold you and I'll come with you, and it's good to go. Or no, actually today we back off. And so it's like a dialogue.
A dialogue. And on that point, I mean, how do you communicate with the student where you're going? Because I've had an adjustment the odd time where I've thought, where are they trying to go with me? You know, I'm not quite sure where it is you're wanting me to go. And so how much of it can be verbal? Do you like the verbal approach, or do you prefer the silent
I prefer
adjustments?
silent, but with verbals when necessary. So if somebody was there going, what are you doing? I'd rather they ask me and said, what are you doing? Rather than just going, oh, this is horrible, get off. So, and if I'm not sure, I'll just say, is that okay? And just check with the student. But if my first, my preference is silence.
It's silent.
Really, because I don't want them to be in their head. I just want them to be in the breath and in the body.
And it does tend to draw the attention from other people in the shala as well, if they hear constant dialogue.
I really like the. I mean, sometimes you do need to talk. You do need to explain things, or students need to ask questions, and that's part of it. But I prefer the peaceful
approach.
Yeah.
And do you have favourite adjustments? Do you have something that you just really like doing because it just feels good?
I really like twisting people, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And there used to be a bread make or something.
I don't know what it is. But it just feels like almost like you're, I don't know, it feels like you're doing it with them, and like, I don't know, it just feels really nice.
Is it quite soothing? Because being a body worker, I find that giving massage sometimes is either you're also stretching your own body at the same time. Sometimes it can be really hard work, but other times it's like actually can be quite nice for your own body too. And is it a little bit like that with the certain adjustments that you feel like?
Yeah, it's like another yoga practice.
Yeah.
I think on a lot of levels, like the focus and the breathing and the awareness, and yeah, it's like another.
Because it does take a lot of focus, doesn't it?
Yeah, you have to be completely present.
Yeah.
You can't, your minds can't wander off.
Thinking of your shopping list or
no.
something like that.
That's not going to happen.
25 breaths later, they're still
so.
in there. and so for the new person to adjusting, we've got sort of common threads of the grounding and the breath and where you're taking. What about teachers that have been maybe teaching for a long time, adjusting for a long time? We all pick up our own little habits, and are there certain things that you've noticed maybe in teachers that have been teaching for a long time, like little bad habits that creep in? For adjusting, yeah.
I suppose one of the sort of common pitfalls is assuming that everybody has the same sort of body type as you.
Right.
And I think that to be aware that other people like different things and have a different body. And as well, quite often when we've been teaching for years, we forget what it's like to be a beginner, and that it can be very intense and difficult for beginners to do this, and if we're leaping on top of them, it doesn't help really. And I think sometimes people can lose sight of that, really, that different body types, and also just compassion really for beginners.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can seem a bit like people are making a fuss about nothing, but to them it's not nothing.
No. And sometimes there's a big disparity between maybe your size as the adjuster and the size of the person you're adjusting in both ways, not only height but physical weight. And it's not always the fact that the adjuster is light and the person is being adjusted is much more substantial. But what are the sort of things that they can think about to maximize their own safety and still give a good adjustment?
Well, I think if you're little in relation to the person you're adjusting, you have to come in close and really use your body weight.
Right.
So maybe start with your knees bent and use your strength of your legs, not your arms, in addition to your body weight, and check as well with them. But never to compromise your own.
Straining too much to give them what you think they're going to need as a good adjustment. Yeah,
and as well sometimes, especially with big blokes, you might feel like, well, they didn't move at all and that was nothing, but actually when you speak to them they say, no, that was great. It was really, and you don't know what it feels like to them, so and
sometimes there's a certain draw to really strong adjusting, and then there's also the other side that is super soft and gentle and just direction. And where do you lie in that sort of perspective? Do you favour one sort or the other, or is it just a mixture? Or?
I guess I try and tune into each person on a individual basis, because I think this is quite an important area, this balance to be struck with being happy and comfortable and content with what you can already do, and also wanting to go further and go deeper. And I think that both are valid. It's to be accepting and happy with what you can do, but at the same time to always working on being the most that you can possibly be. And I think there's different ways of doing it. You can do it in a very sort of harsh, competitive, pushing way, but you can also do it in a very soft, open way of just, I'm going to try my best and see what happens. Not, I'm going to try my best and
it will happen.
So it's and I think there's always ways that you can check yourself, and one is this idea of sort of contentment in yourself, and for other people as well, if other people can do it, are you happy for them? Or are you a bit resentful and envious and jealous? And there's these little kind of tests that you can see for yourself. Say, well, if I never get any better, is that okay? And am I going to go for it at all costs, or am I going to listen to this niggle I've got in my hip and ease off a bit because I need to? So I think although they might seem contradictory, they are actually both true at the same time, And it just depends on how you do it, not necessarily what you're doing, but how you're doing it and what your mental process is about it,
going on.
really. Yeah.
Right, cool. I think what we'll do now is we'll swap over to the sort of the teaching side of things,
Okay.
and just ask you about, so somebody new to teaching, first of all, what are the common pitfalls that they make?
Right. Well, I think one is to get nervous and talk really fast and give too much information.
Right.
And I think if you give too much information, students are either just going to stop listening or just get confused, or just it's too much basically. It's going to go in one ear and out the other ear.
Yeah.
They're not going to take it in. So I think it's always best to say maybe 2 or 3 things that people are actually going to remember than to say 10 things and they forget them all.
The whole lot.
So that's one thing, to not try and give too much information. Another thing is to allow some silence. I think it's important to allow students to have some space to go inside and have their own experience.
Yeah.
You don't have to be talking all the time. Although as a new teacher, it can feel quite scary to
not say anything.
Yeah, not say anything. And then also to try and be yourself. I think all of us start off with an idea of what a yoga teacher should be, and someone who's very serene and
Yes.
calm and spiritual and doesn't get angry. None of us are like that, really. It's like, so I think being yourself, and that's what's going to really make you a teacher that people want to come to. It's like
rather than playing a role.
Yeah, exactly. If you can't connect to a role,
Yeah.
it's not real. And if you can just be yourself and connect with people, that's going to be far nicer for everybody, and for you as well. And I think it's important as you go along, because it's never like, oh, I've got that sorted now. Even after years and years, you can suddenly realise that, I thought...
Fallen back into a certain...
Yeah, that's another pattern that I need to let go of.
And some people find it really hard to find their voice or their... And also I've been in some classes, and it's almost like the teacher talks one way when they're outside, and then they come in. And it's like this sort of super soothing, almost psychoanalysis voice, and you think...
I think just talk in your normal voice.
Normal voice, yeah, it can be really annoying.
Yeah, because I think, your voice does change a little bit if you're talking to a group rather than just talking one-to-one. That kind of happens naturally, but you don't have to talk like this, so,
pretty and sweet.
Yeah, just a normal voice. There are some things like your voice is your main connection with your students, so your voice has to hold the class, really. And there are a couple of things that you can do. One is just, if you move your mouth more, then it comes out louder without you having to shout. And also, if you smile and connect to enjoying it yourself, that will sound in your voice.
It can be heard, even though they're not seeing you, because they might have their head down.
You can hear a smile, and you can hear the sort of warmth and the connection that conveys.
So smile as you're talking.
Yeah.
And then you
smile and move your mouth a lot and be yourself.
Get an achy face by the time you've come.
Yeah.
And it's quite exhausting, isn't it, to be able to hold a class, hold their attention, and keep an eye on the safety and everything. So it's quite a lot of things to juggle. It's not no mean feat.
Yeah, you do have to be very focused, but actually I find it energizing.
Do you? Yeah.
And there have been times when I've maybe had a cold or just felt a bit under the weather and just thought,
We'll stay in bed.
Yeah, but then once you get there, you start going, something kicks in, some energy takes over, and you teach the class, and then I always leave feeling better than when I started. That's one of the things that I think has kept me teaching yoga all these years, is that it's a job that makes you feel better.
And you get a buzz.
When you finished than when you started, which is quite amazing, I think.
And of course it's nice to see people changing, their body is changing, maybe their mental attitude's changing as you're going on.
It's very satisfying, actually, to feel that you're helping people connect to something that makes them happier and live their lives more fully, really.
And quite often I think a teacher can get drawn to a certain person in the class, not necessarily because of a physical attraction, but maybe just some sort of, you happen to see a lot of things wrong with that person. How can you spread your awareness around the group, or make sure it's even, or avoid those sort of pitfalls?
Yeah, I think you just have to really be aware of yourself, aware of your patterns, and yeah, I think that's the only thing I can say really, just awareness.
Analyze what it is you're doing yourself.
Yeah.
And what about the times to say things? I've been in some classes where it's, after a certain, there's something said after every breath, or we were already saying don't say too much.
Yeah.
But is there a good time to say things and a bad time to say things, or?
Well, just on a very sort of basic level, that when people first get into the pose, that's the time to say things. If you wait until the end, then they're coming out.
Yes.
It's too late. Well, that does happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like to think that I try and give a mixture of things like the physical alignment and how to work in the pose physically. Also stuff about softening and backing off. It's like that balance I was talking about of being soft and accepting, and also at the same time working to go deeper. And then I also like to talk about maybe the more spiritual concepts of yoga, which can be related to the physical, like acceptance and awareness and focus, and how that relates to the rest of your life as well. So I'm always trying to give a mixture of teaching really, or ideas and suggestions. And like I say, and also give some silence. So maybe with the spiritual sort of side of things, to mention it very early on, and maybe give a suggestion for how people can watch that in their practice.
It's like an intention for the practice?
Yeah, something like that. And then mention it every now and then come back to it at the end, and how that goes into the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And then also to try and make what you're saying relevant to who's in the room at the moment. So maybe I'll think, I'm going to talk about foundation, then I look around and actually everyone's got a great foundation.
Yeah.
But then I'll see, but also everybody's really flexible and floppy, so maybe I'll talk about connecting to the core, something like that.
So being prepared to be
flexible
and change.
Yeah.
This is my route for today.
Yeah, this is my plan. Yeah. So make it relevant to who you've got, and again, after a while, you just trust it, that it just comes. That I think when you're a beginning teacher, you plan these things and you have an idea of what you're going to do, but then as time goes on, it's almost like you have to get yourself out of the way, like you do with your practice and adjusting, and just allow whatever to come. And trust that that's going to be what this class needs to hear, we hope, on a good day.
And for those, because we've all seen different people start teacher trainings and how they transform through the teacher trainings, and it's not always the boisterous, buoyant, confident ones that at the beginning of the training that make the best teachers at the end. Sometimes it's the quieter ones that have a certain quality that it really shines through at the end. So have you got some words for those people that maybe are thinking about coming down this line of going into teaching, but feel they haven't really got a strong enough personality or strong enough confidence, or find it hard to talk in front of people? Have you got any words of encouragement for those types of people?
Well, I was always very shy. I was always very shy and very quiet, and I found that that through teaching yoga, another aspect of my personality that I didn't realise I had, and it's partly through the practice itself, but also partly through teaching, that over the years my self-confidence and I guess self-esteem have grown and got stronger, and now I'm much more comfortable with people and enjoy that a lot more. That I think in the old days it used to be something that I'd kind of steel myself
ready to go,
chit chat and so don't let that stop you. I think really don't let it stop you. That being shy and being introverted doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to be a good teacher.
Yeah, cool. And I wanted to mention your book, because everybody I've spoken to so far about it says it's like really clear, really easy to understand, They like the fact that it can be laid out and open, so you can actually use it while you're on the mat doing things. So, can you tell us a little bit about what you were thinking when you decided to write it?
Yeah, well, I wanted it to be very practical. I wanted it to be just very, very clear and just like, this is what you need to know. And I think over the years I've taught on teacher training courses. I kind of lost track. I think it's for about 8 years, something like that, long time. And I've been teaching myself for 18 years.
Oh,
like
God, you're that old.
It's a long time anyway. And yeah, so I've had a lot of time to think about it basically and think what is important, what do people need to know, and on the teacher training courses to see what works and what doesn't work, and what information people need to have. So yeah, I wanted it to be, if you want to teach a class focused on the bandhas, you can look at the bandha chapter and say, okay, these are the key points, this is what bandhas do, these are good clear ways to describe them, and this is what you can say to students about, you know, how to use them in the poses.
Yeah.
So I just wanted it to be, this is the information that you need, and it's all very clearly laid out in bullet points.
Yeah.
So you don't have to read through any flowery language to get to the information.
Yeah.
So I wanted it to be a manual, really, of just how to teach and help.
And it took you quite a while, didn't it? Did it take 3 years, was it?
Yes, well actually, because it started off as notes for teacher trainings and notes for workshops, and it started off as a collection of notes, really. So, and then, from thinking, actually, this could be a book, because there are very few books for teachers.
There is, and that's what everybody has said so far. It's like, eventually we've got something not just about the asana itself, but how to actually teach it.
Because it's a different skill. It's one thing knowing how to do an asana, it's another thing knowing how to teach it. And as well, over the years I've had time to say what I say and it doesn't work. And it's like, okay, they're all doing it wrong. It's like, no, I'm saying it wrong.
Yeah.
And then to change what I say and change what I do, it's like, okay, now they're all doing it. So it's like it's been refined, not just by me, by a lot. I've learned from a lot of different people over the years to how to teach. So it is a different skill in itself. So I think, and I hope that more people will write books, because so many people have got so much knowledge that it's important that we share it with each other, I think.
Cool. Thanks, Mel, for talking to us. And you're going to do some little workshops for us as well, which we're going to put out on Love Yoga Anatomy over the coming months. So keep your eyes open for those. And thanks again.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks.